Hey guys, Chris Fix here, and today we'll be testing Royal Purple Max Clean Fuel System Cleaner in this V8 Ford Explorer. This Royal Purple Max Clean is supposed to remove carbon deposits and buildup, and we'll be testing this by looking into the engine with my borescope camera. We'll be looking through the fuel injector holes, at the intake runners and valves, and we'll also be looking through the spark plug holes to see the top of the piston. Now I'm going to do this before we add the Royal Purple to the gas so we can see how much carbon there is right now. And then we're going to add the Royal Purple to the gas, and then my friend will drive the car until it runs out of gas so all of the Royal Purple is used up. Then we'll go back inside and check out the after to see if it actually cleaned out the engine. Now, I've done a lot of fuel system cleaner tests, and like all my tests, none of these are sponsored. I buy all the products myself to give you an unbiased, undeniable look at the engine before and after the cleaner, and I'll let you guys come to your own conclusions. I'm just as curious as you guys of whether or not this stuff actually works. If you want to see my other fuel system cleaner tests, I'll leave the links to those videos in the description, and you can see how well the products work or don't work. Now before we begin, if you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because I'm going to be testing more products such as Marvel Mystery Oil, AMSOIL, and Redline, and you wouldn't want to miss out on that. So let's stop talking and let's look into the engine and see what the carbon buildup looks like before we add the cleaner. Alright, so we're going through the fuel injector hole at the first cylinder, and you can see the carbon buildup, which is the black soot. Well, that gives you an idea of what an intake runner looks like. Now let's go check out the valve. You can see there's some carbon deposits on the valve, and it's not enough to cause any problems, but that's not the point of this video. We just want to see if any of this carbon is going to get cleaned up by the Royal Purple. So let's go check out the piston, and here's piston 1. Again, not a lot of carbon, but it is enough to see if Royal Purple actually works. You can see on the piston, the carbon chunks are dark, and that area on the piston right in the middle that isn't dark is relatively clean. So that gives you an idea of what we're looking at. So I'm going to speed through the next intake runners, valves, and cylinders. And we're only going to be looking on this side of the engine. There's no need to check out all 8 cylinders. This is the next intake runner on cylinder 2, and it looks pretty similar. The valve has slight carbon buildup, but nothing bad. Let's check out the cylinder. There's a light layer of carbon on the piston head. Again, nothing bad. So let's go over to cylinder 3. The cylinder 3 intake runner looks the same as the other two, and surprisingly, the valve here looks pretty clean. Looking at the piston, again, minimal carbon buildup, so let's move to cylinder 4. Here's the cylinder 4 intake runner, which looks about the same as the other 3 intake runners. And this valve is spotless. There's a few specks of carbon, but I mean this thing is clean. So let's check out the piston, and the piston on cylinder 4 is pretty clean as well. Alright, there we go. That was the before. Now let's add the Royal Purple to the gas. We're following the exact instructions on the bottle, and it says to pour the entire can in a nearly empty tank. And this stuff is actually purple. Okay, that was the whole bottle, and the next time we see this Ford Explorer, the Royal Purple will be run completely through the engine. So I had my friend fill the car up halfway with gas to mix the Royal Purple in the tank, and then drive the car like he normally would until it runs out of gas completely. Alright, we are back. My friend ran the car out of gas in a couple of days, and then he needed some rear brakes and set the car aside for me to look at. So a few weeks later, I'm here, and holy smokes, he really did run that out of gas. Alright, I don't know about you, but I've been waiting so long to see if Royal Purple actually works. Let's dive into the cylinder 1 intake runner. Here's the after, here's the before. Now let's compare. Okay, no drastic changes like I thought, but you could see that the Royal Purple was cleaning at the red circled areas. I figured the runner would get cleaned the most because the fuel injector is directly spraying the Royal Purple onto the black carbon, but it really didn't do that much, although at least we did get to see some results. So let's go check out the valve. Here's the after, here's the before. Now let's compare. Okay, so again, you can see the carbon was removed and the valve does look cleaner, so not bad. Let's move to the piston head. Here's the after, here's the before, and let's compare. Holy smokes! Now this is probably the best result we have seen so far with any of the fuel system cleaners. If you look at the red circle, that big spot of carbon is all cleaned up, as well as some of the carbon in the surrounding area, and that's actually impressive. At the same time, there's new carbon being formed, which is that shiny area, but wow, look at that before and after. I'm actually pretty surprised. So let's move on to cylinder 2 and see if we get similar results. Here's the cylinder 2 intake after and before, and the before and after look identical. So let's go check out the valve. Here's the valve after, here's the valve before, and well, I don't see any changes here either. It didn't work on the carbon on this valve, which is interesting, because we did see some cleaning on valve 1. Let's go check out that piston. Here's the after and the before, And okay, well, there was some slight cleaning of the carbon deposits over at the top of the picture, but definitely nothing significant. We didn't get that same result that we got in cylinder 1, but at least we did see some cleaning. Alright, so here's the cylinder 3 intake runner after and before, and we can see some slight cleaning of the runner at the bottom of the picture and over behind the valve. Again, nothing drastic. I'm still surprised it doesn't clean more given that the royal purple is being sprayed directly onto this carbon. Now let's go check out the valve. Here's the after and the before, and at the comparison we could see the valve got dirtier. The only spot I could see that got cleaned is right above the valve seat, although it's not significant. But the valve itself got dirtier, which might be from the carbon getting cleaned from the runner and washed down the intake. Let's go check out the cylinder. Here's the after and the before, and it looks like the cylinder got slightly dirtier when looking to the right of the piston, but that's not really anything significant. But it did not get cleaner. So let's move to cylinder 4. So here's the cylinder 4 intake runner after and before, and the carbon looks like it's thinning on the runner wall, but there's no obvious carbon removal. So let's move on to the valve. This is the after and the before, and those little specks of carbon that were there on the valve before are now gone, but this valve was practically spotless to start with, so I'd hope it got cleaned. Now let's move on to the piston head. This is the after and the before, and we could actually see a new layer of varnish forming, which is that shiny carbon. This carbon's still wet, and over time it'll solidify and turn into the hard carbon deposits we're trying to remove. And that's really it. There's nothing else here to see. So that brings us to the conclusion. I lined up every before and after picture for you guys so you could clearly see the difference in carbon buildup. Royal Purple did work, and I'd say it's still not as good as Seafoam, but cylinder 1 had really good results. It removed the carbon on the intake runner, on the valve, and most surprisingly, on the piston head. And this is something you add to the gas, not something that you pour through the intake. So that's impressive. Now you might be saying, well, really, that's not a lot of carbon. And yeah, it isn't. But after doing a bunch of these tests with different cleaners, this is actually a good amount of carbon removal. Now this is the first time I looked at valves and intake runners, but one thing I learned from looking at piston heads is you're not going to get a shiny piston head, like if you had a head gasket leak. And then if we look at cylinder 2, there was some cleaning, and then cylinder 3 and 4 had no cleaning. And actually the royal purple might have redistributed the carbon, which made it look worse. Overall, I'd say this stuff did work better than I expected, but we still haven't seen results from these fuel system cleaners that blow us away. I'm just glad we saw some cleaning, although not as much as you would want from a whole bottle of cleaner. You saw the before and after, and the results speak for themselves. So let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you liked the video, and I'll be testing many more cleaners, and yes, I'll be testing water as well. So this fuel system cleaner series is far from over, and remember to hit that subscribe button for updates, and as always, the links to the other fuel system cleaner videos could be found in the description.